when I was off of social media totally, that compulsion to check it just went away. And then when I would get back on it, it was like reading the board minutes to an organization that you have no part in. It was like so boring.
Welcome to Take a Beat, a podcast dedicated to career pivoters and those who are wanting to hit pause on the hustle, get clear on your direction, and head toward the life that you envision. Today's episode explores digital minimalism, an idea that is sometimes easier to grapple with in theory than in practice. For example, could you go 24 hours without your phone? That's a question and a challenge that Kelsey Green poses to folks as part of a passion to help people take back some of their time from technology and screens. While she doesn't advocate for getting rid of screens altogether, Kelsey is a proponent of implementing digital boundaries, both professionally and personally, to help increase things like focus, creativity, and in-person connection. It's part of the work that she does to help people start building lives that truly light them up. In addition to screen-free challenges, Kelsey's also the creator of a high accountability mastermind for women entrepreneurs and creators, and she runs a course focused on cultivating meaningful in-person connection. Take a listen to hear more of Kelsey's take on the benefits of digital minimalism, as well as her own story setting digital boundaries in her personal life and in her career in strategic communications, a world that's known for its immediacy and always-on culture. Well, I know that we're going into the topic of digital boundaries today, or digital minimalism. How did you particularly get interested in that area?
I guess I would consider myself maybe like a late adopter. So in college, I'm in my early 40s, right? And so when I was in college, it was, people were getting cell phones, most people had them, and I just resisted getting it because I don't know, I just liked the landline just fine, right? And then I've never really had a TV. I've always like just hated commercials and right, and just had a sense that I just like didn't want to end up just like kicking it in front of the TV all the time, right? So I feel like that has been a theme in my life. But then I was working in the nonprofit field and, chaotic, very busy kinds of careers that required you to basically answer the phone at any time, day or night that, your boss would call, in addition to being online, on email all day long, all night. So I found myself getting really burnt out for that and other reasons too in the nonprofit sector and launch as a consultant. And it's so interesting because when you launch as a consultant, I feel like you go through this in my case and others that I know of, this pretty steep learning curve. You make a bunch of mistakes, kind of bumble around a little bit. And one of the really easy traps to fall into is not having any boundaries with your clients. So if they call, you could be at dinner with your family and you answer. It's, 5 a.m. you answer. You're always on email, you're always responding, and it can be so disruptive for your life. And at some point, I realized I had gotten myself into that trap and I hadn't learned yet how to teach other people, including clients, to treat me as a consultant. And in my personal life, I was going down that same rabbit hole that I feel like a lot of our peers and friends and family have fallen into, just the social media scrolling and not feeling great about it, right? All that kind of same stuff I think that you hear about. And so I started to implement some of these digital boundaries. And I know digital minimalism is like so hard to say, isn't it? So digital boundaries is great. And I can go into that in a minute, but I feel like it has helped me so much. My mental health, my focus, my creativity, and also not feeling resentful about the way I communicate with my clients.
I think that's really cool that you were able to recognize that you didn't love your relationship with your phone and social media and decided to change it. What was it like when you first started implementing some of those boundaries?
Well, I can kind of tell you some of the steps I took. So I will say that I'm on the journey, right? And there's a long way to go still because I still have that compulsion and that drive to check stuff. But I will just point out a book quickly. This is Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. And, in this, he really talks about sort of setting up your own ethos and that would be connected to your values around what you really want to bring forward as important in your life. So there's not like a one size fits all. So for me, what I'm striving towards is being off of screens from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. With the exception of if I want to sit down to write first thing in the morning, I get up about 5 a.m. So if I want to write, I can get on my computer and like write or do a deep work project, but I'm not on my phone for 12 hours. Yeah. And it's also out of sight. So there's a lot of studies that show that even if your phone is face down on a table next to you as you're conversing with someone, even if their phone is face down next to you, your attention is more fractured, right? So putting your phone out of sight. However, I'm monitoring my mom's health right now, so I have her as a call through, like a breakthrough caller. It will ring super loud. My phone's on Do Not Disturb, except for her. So you can set those kind of things, right? And then I also just don't have notifications on at all. No apps, no, I don't have sound notifications on. Again, with the exception of her right now. So that's great. That's like, because what was happening was I was in a relationship about a year ago and he couldn't turn his sound off on his phone. And so every deep conversation, we lived, separately, kind of long distance. We had once a week together, maybe the whole time, just sound bleeping and blonging and sound. And then, if he didn't check it, it was like he felt like I could tell he was distracted and wanted to. And it became an issue like, hey, can we just turn the sound off for a few hours, right? And I just started thinking about how it would like 10 years ago, it'd be so rude if you were at a dinner with someone and just ignored them for an amount of time and started doing something else. Like it would be crazy, right? And this has just become so normal for us. So anyway, so I have no sound on. And I will say that sometimes it can be really annoying, right? Like you miss calls. And I will say if I have a big event or if I'm in the middle of something, more serious, I'll turn the ringer on, whatever, text, but that's very rare. But, you miss stuff and that can be a little bit annoying, but the benefit is that you can actually sit and focus and think and get your work done. And the great news is, I feel like, we can go into this in a sec if you want, but the studies show that the more you can, release those ongoing distractions, the more you're able to focus in. And my goal is to work less and enjoy life more.
I was going to ask, what did you see as sort of the immediate benefits and then maybe even some of the longer term benefits? It sounds like you've been doing it for a little bit of time now. What have you noticed that's different?
When I was off of social media totally, that compulsion to check it just went away. And then when I would get back on it, it was like reading the board minutes to an organization that you have no part in. It was like so boring. Like,
You lost your taste for it essentially.
yeah, just like didn't care. And I was like, wow, this is just like who. I will say the downside was I support a lot of local organizations and a lot of them have moved to social over email lists, so then you miss like their little fundraising events, whatever. So there is some cost, like I won't lie. But there's so many ways to curate your feed, to highlight the organizations you want to follow, to let go of everything else, whatever. There's lots of ways to do it. But the benefits were, I think, like I said, the ability to focus. I just could not sit down and do the work. And I was certain that I had ADHD. And then I started doing this work and realizing that my brain is just sort of fritzed out from all the distractions.
That makes sense. How did you handle the almost compulsion to reach for your phone? That can be a thing for a lot of us, just picking up the phone out of habit or reaching for it because we're so used to doing that. Do you have any tips that helped you with that?
I mean, I guess it's going to be a little tough. Like, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be super easy all the time. That's just kind of the reality. And there's some tricks and hacks and things, and those are great. There's hundreds of devices and apps and things you can use to manage your use. But I would say that again, tying it to the values of why you want to reduce your use, your time online, your consumption is really probably going to help you with those little hacks. And really it's like when you feel that compulsion, I think some of the apps are really great because they will ask you, is there anything else you'd rather be doing with the next hour of your life than scrolling on social media? And if you're like, you press like, no, that's what I want to do. Like, okay. And then I'd say like schedule it out. Like if you're gonna be on an hour, then give yourself an hour and then set that timer and get off, whatever, right?
Were there things that you planned, especially in the beginning, to help kind of, I mean, that's just empty time now. So were there things that you scheduled in there for yourself to kind of also take away from that void?
Yeah. I mean, I believe that the void is like where the magic happens. So that's my goal is to like be in the void. But I take your question. I do because in the beginning, distraction can work really well. So yeah, like here's a great example. So I run these challenges called Screen Free Sundays, and not a new concept, but it's 24 hours off of your phone. And I go 36. So 24 hours, as I learned, for a lot of people is like almost impossible. And the first couple times I ran the challenge, I realized that I was not helping people get as prepared as they needed because they needed like an hour by hour plan for their day. So I'm saying, okay, is there a huge house project that you haven't done in the last 3 years? Can you schedule a walk with a friend? Tell them you're not going to be on your phone, so you're going to have to just meet up, just like all these little things that people can do. So yeah, in the very beginning, I'd say, and I'm not a therapist, but in the very beginning, definitely finding those distractions to take the place of it. But again, for me, the goal is I want to be able to sit and look at the trees for hours and just like be in my own head. I want to drive without any sound just to like be in my own body, like fully present. You know what I mean? So I feel like the void is the goal, but to get there sometimes takes some work.
For sure. Do you ever get any feedback after the 24-hour challenges? You mentioned that you were surprised by how challenging participants can sometimes find it. What types of overall feedback do you tend to get afterward, if any?
Gosh, people have reported back everything. So yeah, I send a survey out and it's so fascinating to see the feedback. Most people say that there were challenging times throughout the day. Absolutely. A lot of people they do great through the first half of the day. As it gets towards evening, if they have a TV routine, they kind of fall off a little bit. But a lot of people have said that they felt anxious at first. They felt like they were missing out. They were going to miss something important. And then after a while, they started feeling a little bit more liberated, a little bit more free. They started feeling more present and a little bit lighter. And that's been common. And the other recurring theme is that people say, wow, I have so much more time in the day than I thought I did.
Well, kind of on that note, how do you feel like it has affected you running your own business and having this commitment to digital minimalism? That word is so hard
I
for me.
know it is.
Digital minimalism, how have you found it to affect your business and more of your professional life?
Well, I will say again, if there's a crisis, I'm in Washington State. There were some wildfires here really bad last year with a client. And, if it's an emergent situation, like I will turn my phone on and be available. And if, they're going to the legislature, they need something last minute, I will do that once in a while, right? So I'm not saying I never do it, but honestly, I think people just have come to expect like this is, I think, good just practice anyway, but making it clear that there's lead time needed. I mean, I have multiple different clients, right? Trying to set the expectation early that you're going to need that lead time and then sticking to it. So I think that's the tough part is really sticking to those boundaries, especially when you are new to your business. You really need the business. Your clients are very, very important to you. But again, if you don't take these steps in the beginning, you're going to fall into the trap where it's only going to get worse. And then you're going to be with your family and it's not even urgent. They just waited to the last minute because you set that precedent, you know?
Do you have any tips or strategies maybe that you've found helpful for people? Maybe they don't have great digital boundaries and they want to implement them. How can they start to do that, especially professionally? What would you recommend?
That's a great question because it is easier to do in the beginning, right? So if you've kind of gotten yourself into that little pickle, it is a little tough to backtrack, and I would say that is a situation that baby steps is probably warranted. So I'd say in the beginning, the way to address it might be being responsive as you have been, but saying, hey, I have some upcoming obligations. I can get this done by whatever, let's 48 hours from then, or, and sort of starting there. And then I would say it depends on your relationship with your clients, right? And again, this may not work for employers and employees. That dynamic is obviously a little bit different, but I would say just trying to be honest with people and you can talk about prioritizing family or work-life balance and just letting people know gently. And then the key part here is to actually, again, follow through.
That definitely makes sense. Well, switching gears a little bit, I know another thing that you are passionate about is building in-person community. Why do you think that's particularly important right now, and how do you see it as potentially related to digital boundaries?
So it's funny because a couple years ago when I was thinking about my course, it's called How to Build Your Circle. It was very separate from the digital boundaries piece. And as I started doing more of this work, I realized, oh my goodness, the accountability coaching, the in-person community building, the digital minimalism, oh my God, these all go together, right? So now my course really focuses on creating your own digital boundaries in order to build your in-person community. And this is, a pretty easy answer because there's so much data that show how we are becoming more isolated. There's a loneliness epidemic. Our health is decreasing. I'm sure you've seen it. This report that came out a couple years ago that coined the term the loneliness epidemic, and the stats are frightening, right? In terms of how much less time we're spending together, and then as a result, how much our health is being impacted by that, our actual physical health, as much as smoking and obesity, like all these things that you hear about. And so I am really serious about trying to help people to build these in-person networks. And it's funny because like, okay, yeah, I use the digital platforms to do this. I use digital tools to talk about, digital minimalism, and that's like people find that kind of funny. But I'm like, well, this is about using the tools as tools, right? Let's utilize the platforms to talk to each other. That's amazing, but not let it replace all these amazing things that can happen in your real in-person life, right?
So
Yeah,
essentially letting them help you to do these, like build the in-person community and whatnot, but not necessarily fully relying on them to be your community potentially.
exactly. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, and I think that is what's happening. And I've heard, especially with young people, like, oh, I just read the book, The Anxious Generation, and that, woof, if that doesn't put the fear into you, like, I don't know what will. It was very sobering, and just I feel for parents right now
Mhm.
of kids growing up in this age. I don't know about you, but post-COVID, people, it's like we just got so much less accustomed to being in person. People got a little bit more awkward. It was like not as accepted to just like be like, "Hey, what are you doing? Let's hang out." Like just hanging out wasn't like a thing anymore. You have to have like some like grand plan. And it's just, oh, it breaks my heart. So in-person community, I feel like is critical, especially as people age. And if you don't have a strong family unit, yes, I feel very strongly about it.
Given your passion for building in-person communities and also with digital boundaries and digital minimalism, what would you like to see happen for more people in those areas? What would your ideal be?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't want to sound like too woo or whatever, but I truly believe it's about a fulfilling life, right? Like when we talk about working hard to not doom scroll, it's not just because you could be painting your bathroom that new color, right? No, it's because it's like the life that you're meant to live is, I mean, maybe if like your calling is social media content creation, dope. That's great. Whatever. On you go, right? But I'm talking about people that have that to feel unfulfilled, that feel that hollow feeling when they're just kind of zonked out, zoned out on social media, feel all those sad, bummer, FOMO feelings when they see their friends doing stuff that their friends took hours to curate online, right? I don't think it's a healthy, good way to live. And I feel like it is hindering two big things. One is, as we spoke about, the in person community. And the other thing is the work that we're meant to be doing in the world. If you don't believe in work that we're meant to be doing, that's fine. But it's sort of like fulfilling, creative, deep work that you could be bringing into existence. And that doesn't necessarily mean, I'm not even talking about your career stuff, paid work, whatever. It's like the things that you feel called to create and produce. And that doesn't even make it, maybe it doesn't even make it past your desk, right? You're writing a novel just for yourself. You're writing your family history memoirs. You're creating a body of art, whatever it is. You're intentionally parenting. You're learning as much as you can about like how to parent and research all this stuff, right? It's just like whatever it is for you. I feel like this is the important stuff. And one recent example in terms of relationships is my mom had come to visit and we sat for a couple hours and just talked. And she was like, wow, I've kind of forgotten what it's like to just like sit and talk for a couple hours. And I had too a little bit. Meetings are a different story, right? But I mean, like just sitting, like looking at someone else, talking about this, like where does the conversation go? We don't have necessarily an agenda, just kind of spitballing with your family, with your pals, just being together. It's like it's something to practice. You need to like stay in that habit, right? And I think the phone makes it very easy to feel, this is one of the main issues. The phone makes you feel like you are connecting and you are doing that and you're building relationships. And I feel like it is doing the opposite. And honestly, just to speak pragmatically for a moment, I mean, people have 1,000 friends on social media, but no one to feed their cat when they go on holiday. I mean, I guess like when we talk about community and people, you need someone to go to if you are in trouble, like people literally physically around you. I believe that we're losing that, and that's really important. There's a term, I can't remember, but it's a term that's just about these casual sort of interactions that you would have with people at the store or your neighbor or the bus driver, whatever, that we're kind of losing. And the fabric, it's like the social fabric is disintegrating.
Yeah, I think it can be a real challenge right now, and it can take a lot of effort or commitment to practice digital minimalism and build in person community. I guess, kind of on that note, I really appreciate you sharing your experiences and your take on these topics. Do you have any other advice or anything else you'd like to add that you think might be helpful for people listening and who are really resonating with this topic?
I think the takeaway would be that in the beginning, it's going to feel kind of crappy, right? And again, I would say set up your emergency stuff. So don't, if you have kids or aging parents or whatever, figure that out. I'm not talking about not talking to them, right? So just to make that clear. But anyway, talking about the rest of the stuff, it's going to feel kind of hard and crappy at first. But what I want people to understand is that the benefits outweigh, the inconvenience and missing out on what that person had at the cocktail bar. The benefits far outweigh the cost of working to manage this, and it's not going to be that super fun at first, but it is worth it.
So just keep pushing through.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, where can people find you if they want to find out more about you or your challenges or just learn more about your take on digital boundaries?
Yeah, thanks, Katie. So my website is Kelsey L, like lemurgreen.com. That's my same handle on Instagram, Kelsey L Green. You can find me by that same handle on LinkedIn. And I run one or two challenges every month, screen-free Sunday challenges that you can sign up for. So you'll be doing it in community. And I send you some, tips for getting ready and some just encouragement and like love leading up to the challenge. And then at the start of every quarter, I have a program called Summit in Six. That's a high accountability program for women creators and entrepreneurs. And that is doing your summit, whatever your summit is. Finishing the book is has become a big one. Finishing the book as people summit. And so that is a cohort of women that come together to do their summit over the course of 6 months. And then the next launch for How to Build Your Circle will be in the new year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time. And I really appreciate it. It was really fun to talk with you. So thanks.
Thanks, Katie. What a pleasure to be on. Thank you so much.
I hope this episode was helpful and provided some food for thought around some of the benefits and the challenges of digital minimalism, and even some of the ways to practice digital boundaries in your own life, if that's something you're interested in. As an additional note, if you're ready to make a change in your career and don't know where to start or it feels too overwhelming, check out takeabeatcoaching.com to learn more about a one-on-one coaching program designed to help you navigate a career pivot. Thanks for listening and take care.